Herbert Hoover was born on August 10, 1874 in West Branch, Iowa. When Hoover was 9, both his parents had died, leaving him and his two siblings as orphans. When Hoover was 16, he attended Stanford University in California and achieved a degree in geology. He used this degree to become a mining engineer, and this brought him to London, England. When World War I began, there were many American tourists and workers living in London, but they wanted to go back home once the war began. This was not easy because no one was allowed in or out of Europe during this time. But Hoover created an organization to send Americans back to their lives in the USA, and through his efforts, about 120,000 returned from Europe. This was the start of his shift from the mining companies to his work as a humanitarian and his place as a more prominent public figure. During World War I, Belgium remained neutral and could not be invaded or taken. But Germany broke this neutral pact and took control of this small country in 1914. Belgium grew some of their own food, but did not have the means to grow enough food to feed all of their citizens. So, they depended largely on imports from other countries like the US. But when Germany invaded, Britain also set up a blockade around Belgium and its ports to ensure that Germany would not extend from there to take any other countries for their side of the war. By closing off the ports, the Belgians were not getting enough food and everybody was hungry. Families, children, everybody starved. The Americans in London and Belgium could not watch this happen, so they created a group to help get food into Belgium, with Herbert Hoover as the lead. The organization was called the Commission for Relief in Belgium, or CRB. Through all of his work as the chairman of the CRB, Hoover became the ambassador of Belgium to the United States. Using his position as a notable public figure in the US, he had the help of everybody there to bring food back to Europe. He did this by having Americans conserve their food, using only what was needed for meals and using everything, not letting anything go to waste. Hoover as an individual was also technically neutral during this process, so the food from America going into Belgium was considered his own food. Germany and Britain did not like this arrangement. Germany felt if everybody was so concerned about the well-being of the Belgian citizens, then Britain should lift the blockade on the ports. They were also concerned by the high quantity of American workers in Belgium distributing the food, who the native Belgians preferred to the Germans. Britain did not like this because they did not trust that the Germans were not going to steal the food coming in for themselves, and the civilians would still starve. They also thought that the Germans were the ones who invaded the country, so it should have been their responsibility to make sure that the Belgians were taken care of. Hoover, of course, was in the middle between Germany and Great Britain, but he calmed them both down by saying that America was neutral in the war and the other countries would not want to alienate their government, and that if the Belgians starved, they would riot, and Germany would not want to deal with that. Hoover also had the American public opinion. The United States public supported his cause with money and food. During the years of World War I, the CRB shipped 697,116,000 pounds of flour, sugar, and grain. This flour was packed in cotton bags, but the movement of these bags was carefully watched because cotton was in demand for German ammunition, and the CRB was worried that the sacks would be repacked and resold as relief flour. So the empty bags were distributed among sewing workrooms, schools, and convents. In these places, the bags were repurposed to make new clothing, pillowcases, and bags for the Belgian people. Girls and women also decorated the flour sacks with embroidered Belgian messages of gratitude to the Americans. With the embellishments of lace, they often decorated the bags with the American flag, the Belgian lion, American eagle, symbols of peace, strength, and courage, and with the colors of red, yellow, and black for Belgium, and red, white, and blue for the United States. These gifts of gratitude were sent back to the U.S. or given to the volunteers living in the country. The CRB operated entirely with voluntary efforts and was able to feed 11 million Belgians between 1914 and 1919 by raising the money needed, obtaining voluntary contributions of food, and shipping the food past the Germans and British. Belgium became the first occupied country to depend entirely on the food imports of other countries. Herbert Hoover's work with the CRB inspired similar relief efforts for other countries in need of agricultural support, such as Soviet Russia later on. Hoover and one of his lead volunteers, Maurice Pate, went on to found the UNICEF program. Through Hoover's involvement with the CRB, he gained the support of many Americans that helped him run for president in 1929. It is said that he saved more lives than anybody else because he saved a whole country from starvation. Belgium is still very grateful for Hoover's help. They show this through the statue of the Egyptian deity Isis given to Hoover by Belgian native Auguste Putman, naming schools after him and even naming an asteroid Herberta in honor of his aid. Even after he died in 1964, Herbert Hoover's legacy will live on with the people of Belgium and the many people he personally helped as a humanitarian.